"You're a bad influence. I've canceled your flight," my sister texted after leaving me at the airport. I didn't let her control me anymore. Months later, I booked another trip. I'm 27. I had a job I liked, even if it didn't exactly light my soul on fire. I was comfortable. Sure, I'd just gotten out of a long-term relationship that had ended pretty much because of bad timing and no real reason to stay. But it wasn't a big deal, right? People get over breakups all the time. You throw yourself into work, pick up a new hobby, or if you're like me, you let things slide and just keep going. What I didn't see coming, though, was what happened after my boyfriend John died. It was like someone ripped the rug out from under me. One minute he was there making me laugh with his cheesy jokes, always strumming his guitar in the living room, and then just like that, gone. He died in a car accident, a stupid, senseless accident. A car ran a red light, and John, who was just about to head to work for his shift as a doctor, never made it there. The first few months after that, complete blur. I tried to keep busy, diving into work, programming, coding, and everything in between. I was good at it, but that didn't make the pain go away. John's stuff was everywhere: the guitar he loved, his jackets, even his stupid helmet he wore for his motorcycle rides. It felt like his ghost was still hanging around every corner, but I pushed it down. I pushed everything down. I had to. My sister Lisa was there for me in those early weeks. I mean, she wasn't exactly the type to talk about feelings. She had her own way of doing things, and I never really understood it, but she was there. She'd come over with her kids, Tommy and Jake, and somehow their noise and energy made things a little easier to bear. It wasn't like we were super close, but I didn't have anyone else, and Lisa did what she could. But Lisa's always been a bit, well, judgmental for lack of a better word. She's the type who has her life figured out, or at least she thinks she does. Married, 2 kids, living in the suburbs, everything in place. She's conservative in a lot of ways, and I guess that's why I never really expected her to get it. She's got this image of how things should be, and a lot of times I just didn't fit that mold. Still, she helped in her own way. Even if it wasn't with a shoulder to cry on, it was with her kids running around, making me feel like I wasn't totally alone. A couple of months passed, and I was still getting used to life without John. His death left this big hole in me, but then something happened that shook me to my core. I had this sudden need to do something to honor John, something permanent, something that would make his memory tangible instead of just a bunch of memories floating around in my head. I wasn't the type to get tattoos, not really. I mean, I always thought they were a little extreme, but this wasn't about trends or rebellion, it was about John. I wanted him with me in a way that couldn't just fade away. So I went ahead and did it, got myself a tattoo. The artist did a portrait of John with his guitar, that silly little smile he always wore when he played, forever captured on my arm. I'd spent hours deciding on what I wanted, but when it was done, I couldn't stop looking at it. It was painful, sure, but worth it, every single second. 2 weeks went by and the tattoo healed beautifully. It wasn't just some random design, it meant something. It was a piece of John with me, but I wasn't sure how my family would react. I was especially nervous about Lisa. She'd always been the one to judge what was appropriate. Then it's family dinner at Lisa's house. I had just finished up a project at work, so I figured, why not? I showed up at her house, and right away Tommy and Jake came running downstairs like always. Tommy, 12 years old and full of energy, gave me a big hug the moment he saw me. Jake, a little more reserved at 15, gave me a smile and said, "Hey, Aunt Sarah." Everything seemed normal until I took off my jacket. I hadn't really thought about it, but I was wearing a short-sleeve shirt, and there it was. My tattoo, John's face, his guitar, all inked onto my skin. Tommy's eyes went wide. "Whoa, is that Uncle John?" He rushed over, staring at my arm like it was the most amazing thing in the world. "That's so cool," he exclaimed. Jake joined in, his usual cool demeanor slipping away. "That's actually awesome, Aunt Sarah," he said, his eyes still on my arm. But then Lisa saw it. Her face changed in an instant. There was this coldness in her eyes, and I felt the shift immediately. The air in the room thickened, and for the first time I realized this was not going to go well. "What were you thinking?" It wasn't a question, it was an accusation. "That's just ugly. I can't believe you'd do something like that. You didn't even ask me. You didn't consult anyone." I was stunned. I didn't even know how to respond. "It's my body, Lisa. I didn't need your permission." She looked at me like I was speaking a foreign language. "But it's not just your body, is it? You're influencing my kids." Tommy's already asking about getting tattoos. He saw that and now he wants one. I tried to keep my voice steady, but it felt like the walls were closing in on me. Tommy's his own person. He's allowed to have his own opinions. It's not like I'm telling him to get a tattoo. It's just not right, she interrupted. "You're being a bad influence on them. I'm just trying to protect my kids from turning out like you." Her words hit me like a slap. A bad influence? Because of a tattoo? I couldn't believe it. I opened my mouth to say something, but she cut me off. "Don't come back here with that tattoo. You're not welcome." She didn't even give me a chance to respond. She just turned and walked out of the room, leaving me standing there in stunned silence with her kids looking confused and unsure of what had just happened. I grabbed my jacket and left, feeling a rush of anger and frustration. How had a simple tattoo become the end of everything? How could she turn my tribute to John into something that ruined my relationship with my own sister? I was angry but also hurt by how quickly she judged me, and hurt by how little she understood what that tattoo meant. This was just the beginning. It wasn't just about the tattoo anymore. It was about boundaries, respect, and a family that had a way of controlling everything. I didn't know it yet, but that tattoo was about to change everything in my life. The days after the tattoo reveal were a blur. At first, I thought maybe Lisa would calm down, maybe she just needed some time to process it. I mean, it wasn't like I was expecting a round of applause, but I didn't expect a full-blown rejection either. The weird part, she didn't even talk to me for days after. There was no follow-up conversation, no chance to explain why I did it or what it meant. It was just silence. It wasn't until the next Saturday that I even dared to go over again. I figured I'd give it one more shot, try to talk it out, maybe make Lisa understand. I missed seeing the kids anyway, even if it felt a little strained. So I loaded up on snacks, grabbed a game for Tommy, and made the drive over to her place. When I pulled into the driveway, I had a weird feeling in the pit of my stomach. I knocked on the door, hoping for a warm welcome like usual. The door swung open and there was Lisa, her face tight with that look she got when she was about to start something she knew wasn't going to end well. "Can we talk?" I asked, trying to keep it calm. I stepped inside, feeling like I was walking into an ambush. I tried to smile at the boys, but they didn't even make eye contact. It was like I had suddenly become the enemy. Tommy looked uncomfortable, shifting his feet like he didn't know whether to say something or not. Jake, on the other hand, was looking at his phone, pretending like he didn't even care. Lisa motioned for me to sit down, and I did, though my nerves were starting to get the best of me. "I don't know what you were thinking, but you can't just walk around and act like that tattoo is no big deal," she started, her voice sharp and unforgiving. I opened my mouth to respond, but she didn't let me. "You've turned Tommy and Jake into little rebels. They're obsessed with tattoos now, talking about getting their own when they turn 16. They're asking about artists and designs. How am I supposed to handle that?" Lisa's voice rose with every word, her anger building like a storm. "You've always been selfish, but this is ridiculous." I felt the frustration building up inside me. "You can't honestly blame me for this. They're growing up in a world where tattoos are normal. It's not like I told them to get one. They're curious, and there's nothing wrong with that." "Oh, it's not just the tattoos, Sarah," Lisa shot back, her eyes flashing with anger. "It's everything. You're a bad influence. A terrible role model. Do you think I want my kids to grow up thinking it's okay to just do whatever they want without any consequences?" "Lisa, I'm not trying to hurt anyone," I said, my voice quieter but firmer now. "I'm not the one telling them to rebel. I'm just living my life. And you know what? It's my body, my decision. If I want a tattoo, I'll get one. I'm not asking for your approval." "Exactly," Lisa snapped, her hands shaking slightly. "And that's the problem. You never think about how your actions affect others. You just do whatever makes you feel good in the moment. But it's not just about you, it's about my kids. They're my responsibility, and I can't just let you mess with their heads." I sat there staring at her, feeling the anger bubble inside me. I had never seen Lisa so upset. It wasn't just the tattoo anymore, it was like she was making me the villain in her story, painting me as the bad influence, the one who didn't care about family or her kids. It was one thing to disagree with me, but to act like I was the source of all their problems, that was too much. "I'm not doing anything wrong," I said finally, standing up. "I came here to try and talk things through, but you're not listening to me. You're just making assumptions and blaming me for things that aren't my fault. Maybe it's time you started thinking about the consequences of your actions," she said, her voice dripping with disappointment. "You're not welcome here anymore. Don't come back with that tattoo. I won't have you influencing my kids anymore." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. I stood there in shock, trying to process what had just happened. "You're kicking me out?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Lisa didn't even flinch. "Yes, I am." I couldn't believe it. After everything I'd done for her, after all the times I'd helped out with the kids, and now this. She was throwing me out over a tattoo, something that meant something personal to me, something that had nothing to do with her or her kids. I grabbed my jacket and turned to leave. "Fine, if that's what you want, I'll go, but don't expect me to come back. I don't need your approval, and I won't let you make me feel like I'm the one who's wrong here." I slammed the door behind me, feeling my chest tighten as I stepped into the cold air. I had no idea where to go, but I couldn't just go home, not after that. The next few weeks were a blur of frustration and anger. I couldn't get Lisa out of my head. How could she be so unreasonable, so ruthless? I tried to go back to my normal routine, working, trying to find some semblance of peace, but it was hard. Every time I thought about the kids, about how they were probably being told I was some sort of bad influence, I felt this intense wave of guilt, like maybe I really had done something wrong. And then came the moment that would change everything. Our family had been talking about this European trip for months. It was supposed to be a fresh start, a chance for me to finally break free from everything weighing me down. Lisa had offered to sponsor it after John passed away, saying it would help me heal. I should have known that the fight at her house about my tattoo would change everything. Lisa's problem was never really about the tattoo, it was about control. She always needed to manage who I was and how I lived. Still, part of me hoped this trip might fix things between us. When the day finally came, nothing went right. I was standing in the check-in line, passport ready, when my phone buzzed. I glanced down at the new email notification and my stomach dropped. "Your flight has been canceled. Please contact your travel agent for further assistance." I couldn't believe it. Had to be a mistake. I rushed to the counter, but the airline staff just shook their heads. They were as confused as I was. No one could tell me why my flight was suddenly canceled. I felt my heart sink as the reality hit me. I wasn't going anywhere, and I had no idea why. Then my phone buzzed again. This time the message wasn't from the airline, it was from Lisa. "I can't let you do this, Sarah. You're not going to Europe, not when you're still a bad influence on my kids. I've canceled your flight. They don't need you messing with their heads anymore." I stood there, numb, the reality sinking in like a weight around my chest. She had crossed a line. This wasn't just about the tattoo anymore or about her disapproval of my choices. This was about her refusing to let me live my life on my own terms. It was manipulation, plain and simple. My phone fell from my hand as I stepped away from the counter. I didn't know what to do or where to go, but I couldn't just let this slide. I couldn't let her get away with treating me like I was a child who needed to be controlled. This was it. This was where I had to draw the line. I was done with trying to appease her, done with playing by her rules, and done with letting her dictate my life. This trip was supposed to be my escape, my fresh start, but it had turned into something I didn't expect, a battle for my independence. And from that moment on, I knew I had to fight for it, no matter what. Eventually, I found myself on the outskirts of town, parked in front of a small, quiet cafe. I sat there in the car for a while, trying to gather my thoughts, my breath, but nothing made sense. The only thing I knew for sure was that I couldn't go back to the way things were. I pulled my phone out again, and this time I called my therapist. She'd been helping me navigate everything with John's death and my complicated relationship with my family. I didn't expect her to have all the answers, but I knew I needed someone to talk to, someone who wouldn't judge me. Sarah, she answered on the first ring. Her voice was warm, calm, exactly what I needed. I don't know what to do, I said, my voice trembling. My family, they just won't let me live my life. I don't know how to deal with this anymore. I'm glad you called, Sarah, she said. I think it's time we talk about boundaries and what you're willing to accept from your family. From Lisa. I felt a lump form in my throat. The tears I had been holding back finally started to spill over, and I let them fall, not caring who saw. I don't even know how we got here. I was just trying to honor John. I thought maybe I could do something for me for once, but now it feels like everything is falling apart. You're not falling apart, Sarah. You're standing up for yourself. That tattoo wasn't just about John. It was about you finding a way to live for you in your own way. And that's okay. But your family, they're not going to understand that right away. And maybe they won't ever understand it. I sniffled, wiping my nose with the sleeve of my jacket. I'm so tired of trying to get their approval. I can't keep doing this. I feel like I'm stuck between what they want for me and what I need for myself. And that's why it's important to set clear boundaries. You can love your family, but you don't have to let them control your choices. What Lisa did, canceling your trip, that was her way of trying to take control of your life again, but you don't have to let that happen. I took a deep breath, feeling a little lighter with every word. It wasn't easy to admit, but I knew she was right. Lisa had always been the one to take charge, to make the decisions, and I had always let her. But this time I couldn't, not when it meant giving up who I was and what I needed. I know what I have to do now, I said quietly. I have to stand up for myself. I can't keep living for them. I need to start living for myself. That's exactly right. You're stronger than you think, Sarah, and this is just the beginning. I stayed on the phone with her for a while longer, talking through the steps I needed to take, the changes I needed to make. By the time we hung up, I felt a sense of clarity that had been missing for months. I had let Lisa's judgments control me for too long, but not anymore. I was done living under her thumb. I took out my phone and started typing a message to Lisa. It was time to lay everything on the table. I had to do this. Lisa, I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened, and I need to be clear with you. I can't keep living my life trying to meet your expectations. I know you think I'm a bad influence, but I've made my choices and I'm going to live with them. I'm done trying to get your approval. I can't keep giving and giving only to be judged for it. I need space. I need to find myself again without worrying about how you or anyone else feels about it. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just telling you the truth. You don't get to control my life anymore. I pressed send. It felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I didn't know how Lisa would react, but I wasn't waiting for her to make the first move anymore. This was my life, and I was going to live it the way I wanted to. For the first time in years, I felt free. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. I spent the next week focusing on myself. I didn't pick up the phone when Lisa called. I didn't respond to the endless texts from my parents, my aunt, or anyone else who seemed to have an opinion on what I should be doing. For once, I just let myself breathe. I'd managed to save up a decent amount of money over the last few months. The Europe trip that had been stolen from me was still something I longed for, something I needed. The freedom, the space, the ability to experience life on my own terms. So I did it. I booked my own flight. I didn't wait for Lisa's approval, and I didn't ask for anyone's permission. I knew it was going to be expensive, but I didn't care. It was my money, and I had earned every cent of it. I couldn't wait to stand on my own 2 feet on my own journey, away from all the noise. As the plane soared higher into the sky, I closed my eyes and thought about John. I thought about the tattoo, the one I had gotten for him, the one that had caused so much pain but had ultimately given me the strength to move forward. He would have been proud of me, I thought, proud that I was finally doing something for myself. And as I thought about everything that had brought me here, losing John, the betrayal, the broken relationships, the hard-fought victories, I realized something. The journey wasn't just about the destination. It was about finding myself again in a world that had tried to force me into a mold I didn't fit. This was my time, this was my journey, and nothing could take that away from me.